Welcome to Private Capital Insiders, a podcast brought to you by Private Capital Global, the Spark Partners company. Today, we're joined by Tim Reagan, co-founder and managing partner of Beecher Reagan, where he leads the private equity practice, partnering with PE firms and hedge funds to build operating groups and identify transformational leaders for portfolio companies and their boards. Tim has spent his career at the intersection of executive search and private equity. And today we're going to dig into how AI is changing the way talent teams operate, the emerging role of the AI operating partner, and how the talent partner function itself is evolving as a result. So, with that, let's jump into it and explore how Tim is thinking about the future of talent strategy inside PE backed businesses, because smart private capital moves start with insightful conversation. Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm well, Frank. How are you doing?
Doing really well. Good to see you again. It's been a while since the Private Capital Global Conference in Chicago. Really good to be able to have you here on the show today. I feel like we're going to have a great conversation and help our listeners walk away with a sharper perspective on where talent strategy is headed in PE backed businesses. I know you work more with the portfolio companies and operating partners, et cetera, and your firm's got a stellar reputation. Um, like to get your insights, and we can't not talk about AI. So let's start there. Like, where is AI showing up in portfolio companies right now? It seems like everywhere.
We're seeing it pop up everywhere as a conversation piece, right? And I think there's a lot of hype out there around tools, right? Like people are seeing benefits from using copilots for talent sourcing or AI assisted screening or using it to supplement lower level resources from a content management or data management standpoint. Um, but I think where we really see the shift is going to be upstream from that, right? Talent teams inside portfolio companies are going to have to really start better defining what capability is within a role before they hire for it. Because AI is compressing in certain circumstances, compressing or even eliminating tasks that used to be part of that role. So the day-to-day change isn't we use AI to write job specs faster or hire faster. It's talent leaders having to sit in the value creation conversation earlier, right? With the deal team, with the operating partners to figure out which roles are even going to be real roles in 18 months. And if those are going to be real roles in 18 months, how are they going to be markedly different from what they are today? And that's a bigger ask than most talent folks within portfolio companies have traditionally had to tackle.
Hmm. Tell me a little bit more about how you've seen that change happen, if you would.
I mean, I think it really depends on the portfolio company and the industry they serve. I think there are instances where you can see enterprise-wide transformation come from AI. There are other industry categories where it's valuable in certain functions. And I think there are some where, to the earlier point, it's more chatter around how I can get some superficial efficiencies in what we're doing, but not necessarily going to have broad enterprise change, especially in the context of the hold period of a PE firm, right? I mean, I think you can look at a portfolio company and say, man, if time and money wasn't an option, I could do these 14 things. But realistically, time and money are very important. So what you have to be able to do is look at where am I able to create the most value, drive the most growth in a certain amount of time and realize that value creation before that portfolio company transacts and moves on to someone else. So it's picking the two or three out of the 14 pillars of things that you think might be valuable and doing those ones well.
So, do you see the firms experimenting with different things? Are some overthinking it? Are some not jumping in soon enough? Where's the middle ground?
I think at the PE level, at the fund level, we're not seeing folks jump too far ahead. I think there's a lot of curiosity, there's a lot of conversations being had,
Mm.
but realistically speaking, there's not a large population of true seasoned AI operating partners. There's a lot of folks that have strong backgrounds in data analytics, things like that. But in the context of I'm an AI operating partner within a fund working across a portfolio, that's a pretty small subset of the overall operating partner population. So there's a lot of conversations happening there. Um,
Mhm.
I think what's happening more is, and I think we'll continue to see it happen even more, is how do I hire within the portfolio companies folks that are able to leverage AI and drive transformation, which at the end of the day, right, is getting an organization to change behaviors, um, you know, and do that in their swim lane, leveraging AI versus I'm an AI adoption person who doesn't necessarily know anything about operations or Salesforce planning or pick your function. But I think
Right.
that's where we'll ultimately see is this kind of blending of AI and transformation capabilities
Mhm.
within specific functions.
Yeah, and in terms of the talent folks within the portfolio companies, are you seeing them utilize it for more top of the funnel things? Initially, that seems to be a pretty good entry point.
There is, so for talent leaders, I think AI is having a lot of impact in terms of knowledge management, candidate sourcing. You definitely see it being very valuable in aggregating large amounts of data in terms of conversations, both internal conversations with stakeholders, external conversations with search partners, candidates, and being able to have a consistent scorecard, right? Something that can agnostic of personal opinions or your memory being bad or you being in a rush to write up an assessment of someone. What we're seeing is AI being able to very methodically benchmark candidates against a scorecard created from the knowledge that it gleans from conversations both internally and externally.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, you placed a lot of operating partners at a lot of these firms, and we're, you mentioned the AI operating partner is really not a thing right now, but your operating partners need to understand how to utilize AI. Is that fair?
Mostly, I think there are certain funds that had AI operating partners, and I think usually those are funds that have a very specific industry focus or set
Mhm.
of industry focuses. Um, as an example, highly regulated industries like healthcare, especially payer
Yeah.
provider or financial services, even some of the broader services firms, they are leveraging AI operating partners because there's evidence across the entire portfolio and evidence in their investment thesis going forward that this person is going to be able to drive a tremendous amount of value and
Right.
maybe not playbooks, not the right word, but somebody that has a framework and a perspective that can come in and drive this again and again and again.
Right.
I think we're seeing it there, but broadly across the PE ecosystem, you're not seeing everybody adopt an AI operating partner role.
So, how are you seeing the role differ from what you saw 2 or 3 years ago, just post COVID, let's say?
I think it's front and center in terms of everyone wanting to make sure that it's part of the DNA of the operating group. I think how you
Mhm.
get there will be different 3 years from now. I think right now, most operating partners, right, come with a functional profile. I've got deep, operations supply chain background or revenue and growth background or technology. Um, I think right now there's a bit of a stopgap between individuals that don't have reps driving AI transformation And so you're having to bridge that gap, finding folks that are a bit farther ahead on the AI curve than others. But I think in 3 years, 4 years, what you'll see is not, I need an AI operating partner. It's, I need a supply chain operating partner or a revenue growth operating partner that has driven AI transformations at organizations.
It makes a lot of sense. So if you're advising a talent leader at a PE-backed business today, what would you say to do to get ahead over the next year or so?
I think the biggest thing to do to get ahead is not to treat this as, I need to go hire AI talent. It's not a hiring challenge. The better instinct for these people is going to be, we need to know which of our current roles are about to change their shape, and whether we upscale these roles, whether we redesign these roles, or we replace them, part and parcel. So talent leaders who wait for an org chart to come out to force that conversation are going to be a step behind. I think the ones that are able to look at, you know, what are the roles today? How is AI impacting these roles and changing them? And how do I hire ahead of that change? Are going to be the folks that bring more to the table when they sit down with deal partners, operating partners, boards,
Right.
execs, versus being someone that's just taking hiring mandates and going and trying to fill those things.
So Tim, when you work through your mandates, are you seeing any consistent patterns or instances where something either went right or maybe not so much, went sideways? Any
Yeah,
short stories you can tell us?
I think the biggest short-term pitfall, and we've seen it with other functional capabilities over the years, is jumping the gun and hiring an AI expert too early or into the wrong seat, right? The client will have an idea that they need to go hire a flashy AI titled person before they've done the harder work, right? Of figuring out where in the business AI actually changes economics and drives value. So you end up hiring a person and then having to back into where they sit, what's their mandate, how do you actually measure the value of having this person in your organization. So oftentimes what you'll have happen is you've hired a person that doesn't have a clear mandate, doesn't have a natural home within the organization, and it makes it very challenging for them to integrate, get traction, and really drive value when you haven't aligned all the stakeholders and have a clear roadmap of how this person comes in and makes the organization more profitable, more valuable, et cetera.
Makes a lot of sense. Anything you'd like to leave the audience with today as we kind of bring this to a close? Or
No, I think the biggest piece here is, you know, I think talent leaders, operating partners, and even talent execs within the portfolio companies, the biggest value they can bring around the AI topic is having that forward-looking vision around what does these roles look like at 2, 3, 4 years from now. If you're hiring, as an example, of someone to lead your sales organization, and 40% of their time is doing research, 30% of their time is client management, and then 20% or 30% of their time is doing contracts and proposals. How does AI impact that role? How is it going to compress some of those areas and leave more time in that person's schedule to do other things? So having that forward looking vision of not just hiring what I need today, but
yeah,
understanding what the battlefield looks like 18 months from now. And, some of the things that you might be screening candidates out for are not going to be nearly as important in this role as AI adoption continues and you see it compress or eliminate not jobs, but requirements within that job, capabilities within that job. So I think
makes
that's
sense.
the biggest thing you can do.
Makes sense, Tim. Well, I know you've got a wide range of clients and sectors that you've worked in. I'm sure people could could learn a lot from you. How would somebody reach you if they wanted to get a hold of you?
Um, Easiest way, probably drop me an email, yeah, at Beecher Reagan, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. But always happy to be a sounding board, always happy to share some thoughts and connect folks with seasoned AI veterans within certain industries that can probably help provide better insights and details on how they might leverage AI to drive value within their portfolio companies.
Sounds great, Tim. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sure we'll meet again. Part
Absolutely.
two's part two is in the stars.
Sounds good. Very good seeing you again, Frank.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode with Tim Reagan, co-founder and managing partner of Beecher Reagan, and a look at how AI is reshaping talent strategy, operating partner roles, and the future of talent functions in private equity. So, if this conversation has sparked ideas about your own operating model or your talent strategy, connect with Tim and Beecher Reagan and their team to continue the dialogue. If you enjoyed this conversation, of course, be sure to subscribe as usual. The like button, leave us a review, a comment, tell us how we can improve, what you want to hear about. We're open to all suggestions. This is your community. You can also follow Private Capital Global for more updates, episodes, and exclusive content for private equity operators and investors. Remember, smart private capital moves start with insightful conversation.